Gather here today, I pray that you help us to understand your love a little bit more. May I say things in your name? Amen. You guys go ahead and take a seat.
Hey everybody, we are in our sixth and final week of our This Is Us series, and we're talking about our final Everybody Plays. And I'm really excited about this one. I sat down for a little while with Shannon talking about how she has gotten involved over the years and how she continues to see God working through the things that she's involved in. It was an awesome interview. I hope you guys enjoy it. Take a look. Hey Shannon, thanks so much for being here. All right, I have one question that I need to have answered because it seems like it's always been the case. Why do you care so much?
Because I can't help it.
Okay, there you go. But no, really, why do you care so much?
No, I just honestly, that's the real answer. That's the way God wired me, and He equipped me to have a compassion for people, and so I guess that's what I'm here for. God puts things in our path for a reason. And a lot of times when God puts things in my path, I feel like, who are you talking to? Because you're not talking to this girl right here. Because I'm not equipped for it. I'm not smart enough for it. I don't know enough about it, whatever. But, you find out that you're just like everybody else. And you just got to jump in with both feet and fumble and stumble your way through it. Actually, it's kind of weird. I like to see God work in people. And I feel like if I step out and serve people, then I kind of get a front row seat to what God's doing. So it might be self-serving in kind of a weird way.
This has been fantastic. Thank you so much, Shannon.
Thank you.
Good evening. Welcome to River Community Church. My name is Sam. I'm one of the pastors here. I'm thrilled that you're here tonight on a Saturday evening. If you're new here, if you haven't been here for a while, you need to know that we're at the very end of our This Is Us series. We've kind of grabbed that title from the popular TV series, and we've been talking about who we are as a church, who we've become as a church over the years, and who we wish to become in the future as a church as we keep on moving forward. As we've been doing that, we've kind of talked through these different everybody's, these things that define us as a church. We talk about how everybody here at RCC fits, and how you can be whoever you are. You can be wearing pajama pants, you can be hanging out and come on Saturday night or Sunday morning. You can have any little piece of who you are, and you fit here. Doesn't matter who you are, you can fit here. Talk about how everybody invites here at RCC, and that can be to church, that can be to faith, that can be to becoming a friend and being kind to someone. We're talking about how everybody here has a tendency to invite here at RCC. We've talked about how everybody connects, and not just with each other, but that is something that's really important to us, whether it's connecting with a community group or different ways that we offer that here at RCC, but then also how everybody here connects with God, which actually takes us to worship as well. We talk about how everybody worships here, whether it's singing or with their resources or whatever we do to give back to God for all the ways that He's blessed us. We talk about how everybody worships here. Last week we talked about everybody's steps. We don't stand still. We're always moving forward. We're always growing closer to God. We're always taking steps to develop that relationship with God. It's what our purpose here is at RCC. And then this week we're talking about how everybody plays. And so we'll be getting into that in just a minute. But this week we're having some fun with that. And so we made t-shirts with that whole little logo thing on it. And you can get one of these. But there's a test, a self-test. You have to memorize all 6 of those, everybody. So if you can very quickly memorize them or look at them, say them really quick when you're looking away and then look back, that's good too. But try and memorize them. It's just kind of a fun way to try and do that for yourself. We're not going to test you back there, but if you think that you can get all 6 of them, even if it's just one time, go for that and then grab a t-shirt on your way out. They're free. But this is just a fun way to remember what we're all about here. So go ahead and grab one of those t-shirts on your way out. I think at the end of the service, there'll be that slide will be back up on the screen so you can quickly do it right before you go, all right? Cool. I'm glad you're all on board. That's how we do tests here. Okay. So this week, we're talking about how everybody plays. And as we were getting into that and talking about what that looks like, how everybody can be involved in that way, it reminded me of this story. It's one of these stories that I really, really love. It always has fascinated me about Jesus. It's the story of this time that he's walking along and he's with his disciples, and They see this guy by them, and this guy happens to have been blind since birth. And the disciples, they asked Jesus, hey, what's the deal with this guy? Why is he blind? Was it his sins or was it his parents' sins that caused him to be blind? And this is just the common understanding, like who's responsible, whose sins are responsible for this negative thing in this person's life. And Jesus, very quickly, and that's not the direction we're going here, but it's an interesting story, very quickly turns the whole thing up on its head and says, no, it wasn't any of that. This person is blind so that in this moment, God can be given glory. And there are moments in our lives where we must carry out the tasks that are given to us, and we must do it quickly because God has assigned us these tasks. And so he goes ahead and he does that. And he does so in the most amazing way. This is the verses that go along with it. It's John 9, 6 through 7. It says this. Then he, Jesus, spit on the ground, made mud with the saliva, and spread the mud over the blind man's eyes. He told him, go wash yourself in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. So the man went and washed and came back seeing. I think that's crazy, right? There Jesus is, and he doesn't just like say, you're healed, like you can see. He gets down in the dirt, like scoops him up and, right, spits in his hands, rubs it together, gets some mud, spreads it over the guy's eyes, and says, go wash it off. And he comes back and he sees. I love that story because it's dirty, right? It's messy, it's gritty. People often say, you'll probably hear it if you're around a church or Christian people long enough, you'll hear people say something that's really nice sounding. They'll say, I want to be a bit more like Jesus. I want to be a little bit more like Jesus. I want to grow and become more like Jesus. It's a common thing to hear. But I don't know if they realize it or not, but in order to do that, in order to become like Jesus, there's this truth. You're going to have to be willing to get your hands dirty to be like Jesus. You'll have to be willing to get a little dirty, get in the game, and get roughed up a little bit to play. You got to be willing to get your hands dirty. For me, there's something about dirty hands. Not like hands with germs and like unwashed hands, not the unsanitary. That's gross. I'm just talking about like dirty hands where you've been out in the dirt and the mud and you've been using that. I think that's pretty awesome. I love dirty hands in that way where you've just been working hard and you can see it and you can see like a person's hands that all calloused up and like you can tell they've been working hard. I think there's something special about that. I think that's awesome. There's something simple and honest about it, where you can just tell that they are not afraid of work. They're not afraid of it. And I don't think it's just me. I think it's actually a pretty common thing. At least for me when I was growing up, it was common for people to help out. I grew up on a farm north of town. Many of you know it's a strawberry farm north of town. And it was common to just be out and working. And there are some things that are on the farm that it's just easier to do with a number of people. So there would be times like we'd be planting strawberries and you can't just do it with like one person in a tractor. You have like multiple people that have to sit on a special kind of planter or whatever. So you'd have to call people up and you ask them to help out. And people would always come and help. They'd be excited to help. It was always something that was there. There's another job that happened this last spring. This last spring, we were setting pipe, and sometimes that just takes a little bit of work. So this last year, I asked a few people if they could help out, and it was awesome. Like I expected them to say no, so I asked a bunch of people. So you kind of expect like maybe a third of the people, and more than a third came. So it was great. And so there's a bunch of us that were out there setting a pipe, and like you're out there and you're setting it out. There's actually a gasket that blew. That's where that water came from. That wasn't rain. That was the pipe not working. But anyways, it was awesome. So many people. They like to be out there and get their hands dirty. And what's awesome about it is it's actually kind of a privilege, right? It's this awesome thing. And at the end, when you're all finished, you get to see the finished product, which in this case looks a little bit like this, where you can see the water working and watering the strawberries. I think that's really neat. On the farm, there's always more work to do. There's never an end. It's always coming. And it's a pretty common joke when you're talking about that kind of stuff where if you stick around long enough and you're a warm body, we'll put you to work. It's just kind of the way it is. Maybe you've heard that phrase before, but it's pretty true. And honestly, when that happens, nobody feels bad. Like nobody feels bad about it. We're not inconveniencing someone. You're actually privileged to be able to be part of it, right? You want to be part of it. The work often is actually the best part, the part where you get to be part of other people doing something and accomplishing a goal. It's a privilege. Here at RCC, as we talk about how everybody plays, everybody gets their hands dirty, we're privileged to do so. We're all privileged to be part of this and privileged to get our hands dirty and do this thing together. And I don't think there's a better way to do it. I mean, you wouldn't want it any other way, right? You wouldn't want some other people to get in on the work. You'd want to be part of it yourself. As you think about it, it's kind of like football. I mean, at the end of the game, when you win a game, you don't want your jersey looking like this. Like, you don't want to get to the game and have it be nice and clean and white, right? At the end of the game, you win the game, you want your jersey to look like this. You want to be like in the mud and dirty. You got in there, you put some plays in, you actually got the game-winning whatever, and you like laid it all out there, and it's like a badge of honor, right? Like, man, I really worked hard for this win, and we did it together. You have to have been part of contributing to it. I think that's awesome. I think all of us want to feel like we can contribute to something, and we can be part of it, and that's why it's so important here that everybody plays. There's this time, there's a guy, and the disciples were talking to some people, and they saw this guy a ways off, and he was performing miracles. And he was performing miracles in such a way where when he did it, he used Jesus' name. But they didn't know this guy yet. They didn't know who he was. And so the disciples were like, hey, who are you? And who are you to use Jesus' name? You're not part of our group. Like, what are you thinking? What are you doing? And so they end up like saying, hey, don't do that. You're not allowed to do that because you're not part of our group. You're not in the know. You don't know Jesus yet. How can you use his name to be part of this? Well, why would you do that? So they stopped the guy from using Jesus' name, and I think they feel pretty good about it. Because after they did that, they go and they find Jesus, and they start talking to him, and they say, hey, Jesus, we stopped this guy. He was using your name to do some miracles, and we knew that he wasn't part of our group, so we kept him from doing it. Listen to what Jesus says. He says, don't stop him. No one who performs a miracle in my name will soon be able to speak evil of me. Anyone who is not against us is for us. If anyone gives you even a cup of water because you belong to the Messiah, I tell you the truth, that person will surely be rewarded. In Jesus' mind, in his way of looking at things, there is no limited access. There's no special group of people that are in the know. There's no limited there. When it comes to following Jesus, you don't have to be that special person or be someone special. When I was talking with Shannon Rogers, which Shannon Rogers and I have known each other a very long time, she was responsible for much of my faith growing up. So she had kids in her home from high school, and I'd help out, and I grew up here, so I knew her really well, and it's awesome. So I asked her that question of why do you care so much, because I literally have seen her care so much for so many people. And I love what she said, though, right? At the end, she said something about how it seems a little self-serving to like serve and help people and get a front row seat to what God's doing. I think that's so true. I think that's so incredibly true because when you do decide to help, when you do decide to play and get involved, that's what happens. You get to see God working, and it's an amazing show. It's more than harvesting crops. It's more than building a house. It's more than accomplishing a goal or being on the championship team. Being there in that moment, witnessing when God transforms someone's life. There's nothing better. There's nothing more amazing than getting to witness a miracle like that up close, in person. And to know you were part of it is even better. It's like having front row seats to the best show, or front row seats to the best concert, or being on the starting lineup of whatever team. But you don't get front row seats. You don't get on the starting team unless you're willing to get your hands dirty. Unless you're willing to get in the game and play. When push comes to shove, you actually have to do something. There's this clip from the This Is Us show that we've been following along with this and connecting it to. And there's this clip where this guy sees a young girl that something bad happens to her, and he's speaking with his mother, and he feels like he wants to do something. And it's a pretty powerful clip. Take a look. I'm not like everybody else. Then do something. Then do something. I think that's how it starts. I think it's a moment where you realize, I can do something. And if I don't, no one will, so why not do something? And like I said, there's no limited access when it comes to following Jesus. Each and every one of us are perfectly viable options to do so. We can. And each of us actually have something worthy and worthwhile to contribute. We all have something that's worth doing. In Romans, a letter that Paul writes, he says this in Romans 12, 6-8, it says, "In his grace, God has given us different gifts for doing certain things well. So, if God has given you the ability to prophesy, speak out with as much faith as God has given you. If your gift is serving others, serve them well. If you are a teacher, teach well. If your gift is to encourage others, be encouraging. If it is giving, give generously. If God has given you leadership ability, take the responsibility seriously. And if you have a gift for showing kindness to others, do it gladly." And this is all over Paul's letter. He wrote a huge amount of the New Testament. And in all of his letters, there's this same kind of theme that comes up over and over again. We each, every last one of us, no matter who we are or where we're from or what we're about, we each have value. We each have something to contribute. We're all part of Christ's body, and each of us have a role to fill. Now, if that's the case, if we each can do something, if we each have a role to fill, then the next question is, well, what's worth doing? What's worth doing? What can we do? I think we can do this. I think we can do the small things that God's made us to do, and we can do them often. Maybe you're looking for like a bigger answer than that, but I think we can do the small things that God's made us to do, and we can do them often. More often than not, they're actually like right in front of us. They're right there, like we can see them. Like they're right there in front of us. And people, whenever I talk to them, they often believe that it's got to be bigger than that. You know what I mean? Like, I'll sit down and have coffee with somebody. They're trying to figure out, like, what's the next step in life? Where should I go? And we'll kind of have that conversation. And a lot of the time, what it boils down to is they have this idea in their heads that there's going to be a moment in life where everybody around them, their jaws are going to drop, and they're going to be like, oh, man, that was it. That was the moment when that big, crazy, amazing thing happened, and I was there, and I did the thing, and now my whole purpose in life is accomplished. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be this, like angels are going to come out and they're going to, whatever else it is. It's going to be amazing. I can't believe it. Like you look for that one big thing that you can do. It's not going to be like that. Definitely it's not going to be like that right away. It's not so quick as that. It rarely happens that fast. Maybe you know someone this week who's had a rough week. It's just been brutal. Or maybe it's more than that. Maybe it's been a month or even a year. They've got this big thing in life that's making life really, really hard. And you just wish that you had the resources to make it all just go away, all be better. But you don't. And you can't. But you know what you can do? You can get them a pizza. And I'm serious about that. You can get them and their family a pizza. You can drop off a coffee. You can send them a note. You can do something. You can do something. It's always the small stuff. It's always the small stuff. Jesus, he tells the story of a master of a property who entrusts people with money. So he's about to go away on a trip. And so he entrusts some servants with some money. He says, gives to one of his servants 5 bags of silver. He says, I'm going to entrust you with this money while I'm gone. And the next servant 3 bags, and then the next servant 1. And then he leaves, and it says in the text that the first 2 get right to work. And very quickly, for the first guy, the 5 become 10. And for the second person, the 3 become 6. But for the last one, he's afraid of his master. He's worried about what he might do if he loses it. So he takes that bag of silver and he runs to the back and he digs a hole, buries it in the hole, and leaves it there until the master comes back. It says a long while later. I think it says that on purpose, that it's a long while. It's not like he just left it there for like a night, like he was worried about it getting stolen overnight. No, it was a long time. So finally, after a long time, the guy comes back, the master, and he's ready to collect. So the first one gives him, he said, hey, you give me 5, I've made it into 10. Here you go. Good job. I'm going to celebrate with you, and I'm going to give you more. And then to the person with 3, he said, hey, I've got 6 now. I turned 3 into 6. And the master says, great job. I'm going to give you some more, and I'm going to celebrate with you. And awesome, way to go. And then the servant with 1 comes back, and he says, hey, I know you're a hard man, and I was worried about what you might do. You take things from places that you didn't do the work for, basically. And I was worried, so I buried it. Here's your 1 back. And he says, what? You didn't do anything with it? You didn't even put it in the bank so it could collect some interest? And he says, give that silver to the other 2 and get rid of this guy. And then Jesus says this about them. He says, to those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. Often we focus on that third one, right? He doesn't invest the money, and we tell ourselves we don't want to be like that guy. We don't want to do that. And for good reason, right? Fear crippled that guy, and it cost him everything. Fear crippled him, and it cost him everything. But the other two did something. Don't let fear cripple you. Don't let fear cripple you. It says the first 2 guys got right to work. They just started doing stuff. You can too. Don't let fear cripple you. You can get in the game and play and get your hands dirty too, just one simple step at a time. If you want to have a crop and harvest a crop at the end of the growing season, you've got to plant the seeds. You've got to water them. You've got to cultivate them. You've got to harvest them when the time is right. It's like putting in the time at practice. You can't expect a big return on game day if you haven't been showing up to practice. It just doesn't work that way. Here at RCC, everybody plays, but to get the fruit, to experience God working, the more you're willing to get your hands dirty and to do it over a longer period of time, the more you'll witness what God is doing, all in time. The more you're faithful with the work God puts in front of you, the more opportunities He's going to give you. You turn 5 into 10 or 3 into 6 or 1 into 2. If you do any of those, He'll begin to bring you more opportunities. And you can get even dirtier and have more fun and play even harder. But how do you do it? And how does that actually work? Here's the secret to how everybody can play. And each and every one of us can be part of it. There's this simple thing to look at. It's this. It's to start simple, start small, and let God take it from there. Start simple, start small, and let God take it from there. If you believe that God has called you to do something about people who don't have enough food or clothing, before you travel across the planet, maybe it's a good idea to start helping out at the thrift store and food pantry. You can start there. Start simple and start small and begin from there. If you want to help kids who struggle in school, it's terrible. You feel it's so bad that there's kids that struggle in school and they don't have a lot of help, which you think to yourself, it could be just doing this amazing after-school program, and you dream really big, and then you dream so big that you're like, there's no way I could do it, and so you stop. Maybe start with 1 kid. Maybe start with the after-school program that's already there and get involved. If you want your friends and family to know Jesus, and there's some of them that just don't, and it breaks your heart, you wish that they knew this relationship that you have with Him, instead of trying to get them all there at once, all at one time, maybe instead of doing all of them, start with 1. Start with 1. If you want kids to know they're loved and matter to God, come here on Wednesday nights, help out with student life, or help out on Sunday mornings with RCC's kids ministry. Which actually brings us to one of the things that we're talking about with the high school. There's these cards that are in front of you. If you're interested in these, they can grab one out. These are the RCC at RHS launch teams. This is going to be happening soon. As you hopefully know by now, we're only a couple months away from launching services at the high school. It's going to be happening on January 13th. We'll have our Christmas services there, and then on January 13th, we'll start having our weekend services there, our Sunday services there. One way to experience God working through you and in people's lives, and this is really good. I want you to, if you've been kind of checking out for a second, check into this one point, and then we'll get to these cards in a second. But one way to experience God working through you and in people's lives is to look around you in your everyday life and see where God is doing something. Where's God moving? What is God doing? Where is he moving and changing people's lives? And then you know what you do? When you find that thing, you see it, you're looking for it, you find it, you go get in on it. If you want to experience God working, you look for where he's already moving and you go join in. You jump in and help out. You add fuel to an already roaring fire. You go where God is leading you to go. So if you're looking to see this and experience this, you should be looking for where God's already moving and get in on it. And let me be very clear in case you've been looking for a sign of where God's looking. God is doing something with this move of RCC services to the high school. There are far too many things that have gone far too well. There's too many examples of God opening doors and making things work in ways we never would have ever expected. God is doing something with this move. This is your sign if you're looking for one. So get in on something God's doing, which takes us to this. If you're interested, we're going to launch things January 13th. And from January 13th all the way until Easter, we're going to have a set of teams. So you're not committing to forever into the future of doing something. You are committing to 3 months to making this happen really, really well. Because we see God doing something and we want to do it as well as we possibly can. So we're asking you to commit to 3 months in some way, if you can, to help make this happen and happen so well. There are a bunch of different teams. We're asking you to mark your first, second, and third choices in that order, and that's in anything. So maybe you're saying, I would love to be a welcoming person, or there's a fun team in the Commons. I want in on that. We are always kind of crazy and do silly things, so you can just imagine what you could be doing. It'd be a lot of fun. You could maybe say that's my first choice, but my second choice is I love to work with K through 5th graders. That would be really fun for me. I'd love to do that. Or maybe the third choice is doing setup teardown in the auditorium, because you wouldn't mind doing that and you could help in that way. You're not signing up for 3 teams. You're signing up for 3 options and you'll get put on one team, maybe 2 if you really want it to be. But if you're interested in being involved in any way, the things that you're doing now will kind of have to transition. So you're not guaranteed to keep on doing what you're doing, but if you want to, we're more than excited to help you get plugged into that. So if you want to, fill out your name, email, and phone number, and toss on this an area of serving and playing that you'd love to get involved in, and then hand these into the offering baskets in just a little bit. I can't encourage you enough. I'm really excited about what's going to happen there. I think we're barely even knowing what God's doing. So I'm excited to see what he does. And I'd love for you guys to get involved with it and to be part of it. It's about as practical as we can get. But here's the thing about that. We're making this big change, but we're not changing. Like, we're still Ripon Community Church because we're still us. We're still this group of people who are following Jesus together. We're just meeting somewhere else. And so as we make this transition to hosting service at the high school, it's going to be incredibly important that we embrace even more so who God has made RCC to be, who he's made us to be as a church, and who he's going to continue to make us to be. And so for that, and with that in mind, I want to finish with a final story. Near the end of Jesus' life, before he ends up on the cross, he's in an upper room with his disciples. And all the disciples are in there, and Jesus, he takes this towel, and he wraps it around his waist. And then he goes and gets this basin, and he fills it with water. And then Jesus gets down on his hands and knees, and he begins to wash each and every one of the disciples' feet that wore sandals and walked on dirty, dusty, manure-filled, who knows what streets. And so there he is, and he's washing each and every one of the disciples' feet. Some of them protest, but he convinces them that he needs to do this. And so this clean basin of water, one can only imagine, goes from clean and pure to muddy and dirty. And the towel is the same. And he stands up as he finishes, and he looks at his disciples, and he says, "You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, because that's what I am. And since I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash each other's feet. I've given you an example to follow. Do as I have done to you." It's time to get in the game. It's time to play. It's time to get your hands dirty. What if? What if we all played? What if every last one of us here this evening and all tomorrow morning got involved and played? Imagine Ripon and the communities around Ripon if we all played, if we all got our hands dirty. What could change? What could happen? How might God move even more? Why not? Why not get in on it? Will you do it? Why don't we pray together to finish? Dear God, I am so incredibly grateful that you love us. We are so grateful that you're the type of God who would send his son, and his son would get down on his hands and knees and begin washing feet because he's so willing to serve. God, we want to be that way. We want to get in on the game. We want to play. We want to get our hands dirty. And we want to be part of seeing you work in the most amazing ways. So God, as we take that step to do so, and as we do so with whatever area we decide that is the right one, and we ask that you lead us and that you'd show up, that we'd get to experience you moving in people's lives and changing people's lives in the most amazing ways, and that we'd get to have front row seats to you doing miracles. Thank you for the way that you continue to love us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.